Assemblyman Ed Roth, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me again.
Of course. So Republicans in the Assembly have now introduced a resolution for impeachment of the governor. It's obviously a big step forward, but you would need Democrats to sign on for it to actually move forward and pass in the Assembly. Do you know as of now if Democrats have responded, what they're feeling about it?
Well, there are some Democrats that we know have said the governor should resign. And then there are some that went that step further and said he should resign or we should impeach him. So we've kind of been keeping an eye on how many have called for the resignation. Earlier this week when they conferenced, there were some reports out there that maybe there were only 7 or 8 of them that were willing to go that step further to actually impeach him. So I think at some point, the governor's going to keep saying, I'm not going to resign. And I certainly take him at his word for that. But it's becoming a major, major distraction. And we can't forget, these accusers have been credible and there's this investigation ongoing. But we still always have to keep also in the front of our mind the nursing home scandal.
Right, exactly. There is just a lot going on in Albany right now, and I want to get to some of that in a little bit. But first, there's this divide, it seems, in the Democratic Party in the legislature between some, and you alluded to it a little bit, but some people want the governor to resign. Others have gone far as saying that they would impeach him. But then there's a large faction of Democrats who want to wait for the AG's investigation to continue and wait for the results of that before making any moves. Tell me what the advantage would be to impeaching him right now instead of waiting for that investigation.
Well, I think people have to remember that in impeachment, if you try to parallel it to a criminal situation, it's not the conviction, right? It's moving forward, and it just so happens the way our state, Constitution and laws set this up is that the governor, upon the impeachment by the Assembly, ceases to be able to function as governor. The lieutenant governor starts functioning as acting governor. So and then there's an actual trial on the articles of impeachment in the Senate. So I don't think the two things are mutually exclusive, but I think it would enable us maybe to have the lieutenant governor step in and at least get us through this period, negotiate what's going to be a very important budget to try to deal with the needs that are out there as we come out of the pandemic.
I imagine some supporters of the governor, including those in the legislature, might point to your impeachment resolution as more political rather than something that will move things forward, give Republicans maybe some votes at the polls. What would you say to those Democrats? Because I imagine the more that this goes on, we're going to hear that narrative more and more.
Well, I think I would remind people that, as we've gone through the last few weeks, some of the most vocal people about this have been Democrats. Many of the even progressive, even first-term legislators have been very vocal about the governor. So I think it's more of really a reckoning of the way this governor has conducted himself with the legislature, that he's not really finding too many defenders, and it is bipartisan. And I think moving forward, it's a good government thing to be able to not have these distractions hanging over what I said is going to be a very important budget. We're trying to get the vaccines out the door. We're trying to provide help to our businesses. We're trying to make sure the schools have the resources they need to reopen. And this makes it difficult. You have 2 legislative leaders who have called one who has called on the governor to resign, one that I would say kind of was right about there but didn't quite do that, and they're going to have to negotiate a budget with him.
Turning to the budget, how is this all affecting the budget process? You're the top-ranking Republican on the Assembly Ways and Means Committee, which negotiates the budget every year with the governor's office in the Senate. How does this play into things? It's obviously a very bad time for everything to be happening.
Yeah, I think about, when you're negotiating something, whether it's in business, whether it's in government, there needs to be a level of trust. And I think there has been an erosion of that trust. And I think we'd be naive to think that's not going to impact the process. Now, I certainly can see the idea that, perhaps a weakened governor strengthens the hands of the legislature. And as we know, there's a lot of talk on the Democratic side pushing for major tax increases and all of that the governor really hasn't been so keen on doing, other than, the really narrow proposal that he included in the executive budget proposal. But we're getting into that part of the process. We're going to see one House budgets probably within the next week and see really where the majorities are on those proposals.
I wanted to ask you about that. Do you think Democrats will have more power in the budget process this year? Do you think the governor may be willing to give more concessions during a budget year where he's facing a lot of pressure to either resign or take some sort of action against himself or his administration?
I think certainly he's in a weakened position, but if I was the majorities, I wouldn't underestimate him because he is very good at using the budget process to get things he wants, and certainly he is very powerful in the budget process. It's just the way our state is set up. That budget process gives the executive a lot of power. So I would say they should be careful with it, but I could see that perhaps they see an opportunity to negotiate a budget with a weakened governor and maybe get some of those priorities, with those tax increases that they want to do so that they can fund the types of programs they'd like to.
It's really interesting, something to keep a close eye on in the next few weeks. Assemblyman Ed Roth, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Dan.